Today is Thursday, July 3, 2014. It's the 184th day of the year. There are 181 days remaining until the end of 2014. Sunrise today is at 5:11 a.m. The sun sets at 8:37 p.m. Length of daylight hours today is 15 hours, 25 minutes, 57 seconds. 49 seconds fewer than yesterday. Tomorrow will be 53 seconds shorter than today. The waxing crescent moon rises today at 11:22 a.m. with 34.7% illumination and sets at 11:43 p.m. The moon passes today above downtown Rutland City at 249,160 miles distant from the center of planet Earth within the sixth zodiacal designation, Virgo, the Virgin. On this day in 1979, U.S. President Jimmy Carter signs the first directive for secret aid to the opponents of the pro-Soviet regime in Kabul, Afghanistan, and you thought he was useless. When the Soviets invade Afghanistan, which the West understands as the usual Russian expansionist push to find warm water ports, the president announces his Carter Doctrine, that America will not allow any nation, meaning the Soviets, to control the Persian Gulf. Wait a minute, isn't the Persian Gulf in a hemisphere far, far away? Never mind, it's the principle. Carter pushes the Soviets in various other ways too. He kills a Cold War wheat deal, which is essentially a sanction on American farmers who, God knows, don't need the aggravation. And in 1980, he keeps the American Olympic team out of the games to punish Moscow, you see. Funding and training for our pals, the Mujahedeen, foreign guerrilla fighters in Afghanistan, grows exponentially through the Reagan years. These are essentially the same guys we're fighting and losing to now. On this day in 1988, the Fatih Sultan Mehmed Bridge, then the fifth longest suspension bridge in the world in Istanbul, Turkey, is completed, providing the second connection between the continents of Europe and Asia over the Bosphorus Strait. If the name is familiar, Mehmed the Conqueror is the Caliph through about 40 years of the 15th century, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, which he pretty much pulled together, an empire extending from the Adriatic Sea in the west to deep into southern Asia in the east. When he's 21, he conquers Constantinople, putting an end to the Byzantine Empire. Essentially, it's Mehmed who drives the final nail into the coffin of the Roman Empire. He goes on to defeat Vlad II, the Impaler, Vlad Tepes of the House of Dracul, the bloodthirsty archetype who evolves in the mythology into a drinker of blood. To unify Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, Vlad gets an endless cycle of Dracula movies. Is he a villain? Is he a hero? Wait, he's a villain and a hero. Mehmed gets a bridge spanning the Bosporus, connecting Europe and Asia, symbolic, see? But also a university and cultish devotion that continues today. Born this day in 1878, George M. Cohan, American actor, singer, and dancer. He's a Yankee Doodle dandy, but sorry, not quite born on the 4th of July. There's no equivalent of this guy working today. He wrote popular songs that became 20th century standards, Give My Regards to Broadway, and was the subject of a 1942 Warner Brothers biopic starring James Cagney. In the end, hope I'm not spoiling this for you, but when he dances down the stairs at the White House after FDR gives him the Congressional Medal of Honor, Cagney allegedly improvised that on set. That scene causes national quelling. Outside the movie house, World War II is going on, and we're not doing so well. People still cavil for this picture right around this time of year. Born this day in 1883, Franz Kafka, a Czech-German author. Kafka wrote that great story and novella, The Metamorphosis, published in 1915, in which this young guy, a salesman actually, Gregor Samsa, wakes up one morning to discover he's overnight been transformed into an enormous insect-like creature, a giant cockroach. He has to deal with, first of all, the shame of being so hideous, but also the burden on his parents, his family. His younger sister hates him because who's ever going to want to marry a girl whose brother is a giant cockroach? It's a dilemma. Also his job. Would you buy flatware from an enormous, hideous vermin? I doubt it. All he wants to do is hang out under the couch. Kafka lends his name as a descriptor, Kafkaesque, to any dilemma from which there's no escape, only complication. Born this day in 1913, Dorothy Kilgallen, American journalist. She works for Hearst in New York. Her Broadway column is syndicated in more than 100 papers. In 1950, she goes on TV to become a panelist for What's My Line, and she stays with that show until her death in 1965. Around 1959, she alleges in her column that the CIA is using the mafia to kill Fidel Castro. Shocking news. Turns out to be true. She claims to have interviewed Jack Ruby outside the courthouse where he's being tried for murder, having shot Lee Harvey Oswald in the basement of the Dallas police station, in full view of the media crammed in there and live on television Sunday morning, November 24, 1963. Sinatra didn't like her much either, insulted her looks. J. Edgar Hoover calls her flighty and irresponsible, keeps a file on her. She drinks. She dies at 52, just hours after her last What's My Line, on November 8, 1965. Official cause of death, overdose of alcohol and barbiturates. Unofficial cause, undetermined. Emma Goldman was an anarchist revolutionary who lived for a time in New York until she's arrested for advocating resistance to the newly instituted draft in 1917. She serves 2 years in prison. Upon her release in 1919, she's deported to Russia. than in the throes of the Bolshevik Revolution. Emma Goldman writes, patriotism is a superstition artificially created and maintained through a network of lies and falsehoods, a superstition that robs man of his self-respect and dignity and increases his arrogance and conceit. From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.